Hi, my name is Mark Rosen. I'm with Building Energy Incorporated, and I'm a sustainability consultant and an energy advisor in the Ottawa area. Well, we'll start with Energy Star. So the Energy Star for New Homes program is a program that's mandated and overseen by Natural Resources Canada. The Energy Star for New Homes program is a program that aims to encourage builders to build homes that are on average 20% more energy efficient than the building code. So our building code is continuously improving every 5 years. It gets updated with new requirements to keep our housing moving in a good direction, to be ever better built and ever more energy efficient. And the Energy Star program aims to keep builders one step ahead of the building code, and also to kind of show the building code the path forward. So often the next generation of the building code is influenced by the previous generation of Energy Star. An Energy Star for New Home certification means that a home is built more airtight than a building code house, usually with higher insulation levels than is required by the building code, often better windows, improved mechanical systems like higher efficiency furnaces or hot water tanks, and emphasis also on electricity savings, energy efficient light bulbs and appliances. And that's, in keeping with the Energy Star brand, the Energy Star brand that most people are familiar with. They see the blue star sticker on appliances, and the Energy Star for New Homes standard is the same Energy Star that you see on appliances but applied to housing. So the Energy Star for New Homes program is nationwide in Canada. It's in order to become certified, a builder has to work with an energy advisor like myself, like Building Energy, to have their homes built with a certain specification. So built with the right levels of insulation, the right windows, the right appliances, the right ventilation, and then to have the home inspected and tested by an energy advisor as well. So that adds a level of quality control to a new home that home buyers can feel good about. They know that it wasn't just the builder on their own trying to do a better job, but they actually had third-party oversight to help make sure that the home is performing the way it was intended to perform. The Energy Star for New Homes program aims to bring in a lot of participation. So it's relatively easy to achieve, but it still demonstrates that a builder is on the leading edge of energy efficiency. And usually you see adoption of the Energy Star for New Home standard by developers that are building homes for first-time home buyers, homes in subdivisions or large developments, or repeat models of homes, because it's very much applicable as a standard to medium to large scale developments. So a lot of the new housing that's being built around Ottawa in kind of our outlying areas, Orleans, Barrhaven, Canada, a lot of these homes are being built to the Energy Star for New Homes standard. And it's something worth looking for sure, if you're purchasing a new home. Next up on the scale, if you will, from the Energy Star standard, next up from the scale from the Energy Star standard is the R200 program, which is also a program that's administered by Natural Resources Canada and was developed in Canada back in the 1970s and 80s, and really at the time was a world leader in showing what can be done in housing for energy efficiency. So where the Energy Star for New Homes program aims to make housing on average 20% more efficient than the building code, the R2000 standard aims for 50% better than the building code. So it's a big step up. It's a more technically rigorous standard and comes with requirements to actually model the house and prove through energy modeling that the performance of 50% better than code is being achieved for every house that's built to the R2000 standard. So because of that, it's a little bit more of an elite program. You see fewer houses built to the standard, and more often than not, custom housing would target R2000 instead of Energy Star, because there's an opportunity with custom housing to pay more attention to the details that are required for an R2000 home. The R2000 standard is still a world leader in terms of energy efficiency standards for housing, and is one of the building blocks that's being used in the development of the new net zero housing standard that's coming into effect in the new year here in Canada. And we'll come back to net zero in a moment. But basically, the R200 program is very effective as a building block for net zero because it targets a significant reduction in the amount of energy that's required for a home. And that's the first thing that you need to do if you want to talk about off-grid or net zero housing. The other housing program that you often hear about these days is LEED. And LEED is in housing, LEED is in construction downtown, so you'll see it on commercial office buildings, you'll see it for museums, convention centers. LEED is a much more broad and far-reaching program. The Energy Star for New Homes program and the R200 program are specifically for housing, but LEED has categories for a much wider range of construction. So they have LEED for new construction commercial, they have LEED for neighborhood development, LEED for building shell and core. They have LEED for homes. And LEED for homes is the sphere that we operate in at Building Energy, and the standard that's targeted by residential builders. The primary difference between a LEED certification and an Energy Star certification or an R200 certification is that LEED looks at a more holistic, a broader scope that applies to the construction of a new house. Energy Star and R200 are specifically about energy. It's about a reduction in the energy used to heat and operate a house. LEED allows builders more flexibility in some ways by saying there are several categories, there are 7 categories that promote sustainability in housing, and in each category there are points available for taking certain measures and putting them into your project. And so a builder may decide, okay, I'm going to focus on saving water and using sustainable materials. And those 2 categories might get them enough points to achieve a LEED certification with less emphasis on energy efficiency in the house. Now, that's not to say that you can just ignore the categories that don't fit the project. There are minimum requirements in every category, but LEED will kind of consider the whole project and its surrounding area as a way to give credit for more than just the energy efficiency of what's built. So to kind of walk you through some of the things that go into a LEED for Home certification, they'll look at where is the house being built. Is it being built with density in its surroundings, or is it being built out in the middle of green, natural landscape and taking up what could be farmland or parkland? It'll look at how is it connected in to city services. Is it taking consideration of how rainwater causes erosion and addressing that? Is it looking at efficient ways to irrigate landscaping? Is it looking for ways to reuse water in the house, conserve water in the house? Are you using low off-gassing materials, recycled materials in construction? Are you diverting waste during construction from landfills so that more goes into recycling and reuse? Are you raising awareness of the sustainability of your project? There's a publicity aspect to LEED for Homes that's a part of it, and that really recognizes that the more people talk about green standards, the more prevalent they will become. And so LEED gives a nod to that. Now, something that's a little bit confusing here is some people think that you can only have one certification or the other, but one of the nice things about the LEED for Home certification is that it plays well with the other certifications. You can have an Energy Star certified and LEED certified home as the same home. And what that really demonstrates is that the Energy Star certification shows that the house is energy efficient, and the LEED certification shows that the house also cares about the materials, the location, the water efficiency, etc. So both of them together show that the project is very well-rounded in terms of its sustainability. And the same is true for R200 and LEED for Homes. The same is true for PassiveHaus and LEED for Homes, and even for Net Zero and LEED for Homes. So LEED for Homes is a standard that can be wrapped around any of the other standards and apply equally and play well with most of the other standards. Another standard that I just mentioned there was PassiveHaus. And PassiveHaus is a standard that is gaining a lot of momentum these days and is perhaps the most rigorous technically of the standards that are out there. PassiveHaus is in fact one word, German, PassiveHaus, H-A-U-S, which stands really for passive building. So much like LEED, PassiveHaus can apply to any scale of construction. High-rise apartment buildings can be PassiveHaus. Commercial office buildings can be PassiveHaus. But in this context, we're talking about PassiveHaus as it applies to houses. And much like the Energy Star and R200 programs, the primary focus of PassiveHaus is to reduce the energy consumption of the home. And PassiveHaus is very specific in what it addresses. It recognizes that in most climates, the biggest source of energy use in housing is the energy required to heat or cool the home, depending on where it's being built. And so all of the peripherals in the PassiveHaus standard are designed to reduce the energy consumption for heating and cooling first and most significantly. So for example, in a Canadian climate like Ottawa, a house that's certified PassiveHaus will use as much as 85% less energy for heating than a home that's built to building code. And that's a significant reduction. The way it's achieved with PassiveHaus, and the reason the name PassiveHaus is what it is that the technology that goes into PassiveHaus is passive in nature for the most part. And passive versus active technology means things that don't have parts that break down, that don't move, that aren't required to do anything other than be in the building. So insulation is a perfect example. Windows are a good example. Air tightness, which is not a thing in itself, but a way of building, is also a passive strategy, as opposed to solar panels on the roof, which is an active technology, or high efficiency furnace, which is an active technology. So passive houses reduce energy use by building a better shell for the house, putting a better coat on, if you will, better insulation, better windows, better air tightness, fewer thermal bridges, which are the structural pieces of a home that allow cold to kind of shortcut through insulation. So if you think, for example, of a window frame often is one of the coldest places in a house because the cold travels from the outside through the frame, past the glass, past the insulation. So PassiveHaus windows are usually designed slightly differently with more robust frames that would have thermal breaks to help prevent those cold bridges really from sneaking that cold into the house past the insulation levels. The result of all of these measures is not only reduced energy efficiency in housing, but improved comfort, improved air quality, improved health in general, better acoustic environment, quieter houses. And it's kind of on a scale. Energy Star will show improvements in all of those areas. R200 will show even greater improvements. PassiveHaus will show the greatest improvement in all of those things. And along the same scale, each of those standards is incrementally harder to achieve. Energy Star is designed as a program to be very achievable for builders. R200 demonstrates a specific intention to achieve energy efficiency above and beyond what is commonly available. And PassiveHaus really shows a commitment to doing everything that's possible to improve the quality of a house that's being built. So I mentioned how LEED works well with all three of those standards, and the next standard that's coming to bear very soon and is already in practice in several ways is the net zero standard. And net zero as a term has been around for a long time, but the standard that's now coming in to the Canadian market is very exciting because it recognizes some specific criteria that are required to earn the label net zero for a house. Net zero, in its most basic definition, refers to a home that produces as much energy as it uses. So the most obvious way that that'll be done will be solar panels on the roof. And if the solar panels over the course of a year generate as much energy as the rest of the house uses, then it's a net zero house. Now the standard that's being developed for Canada has some additional requirements built in there to ensure that you have good air quality and a healthy environment as well. But that's the big picture. So knowing that, you can see that the energy efficiency standards that lead you towards net zero are all designed to help you get there with fewer and fewer renewable resources required. What I mean by that is if you build an R200 house and you reduce the energy consumption by 50% over the building code, you need a lot fewer solar panels to generate that same amount of electricity to offset that energy use that you're using in the house. So the net zero standard recognizes, for example, an R200 certified home is on its way to becoming a net zero certified home. And they're developing a standard that's coming in called net zero ready and net zero. So the difference between the two, net zero ready means a house that's just missing the solar panels or just missing the renewable energy. It otherwise has done everything that is required to reduce the energy consumption of the house so that it's low enough to be offset by renewable energy on site. So you can see how all of these standards start to tie in together. It's possible, for example, to have a house that is built to R2000 standards, achieves a net zero certification, and also achieves a LEED for Home certification to recognize the other things that are being done. Of course, for each of these standards, there are different inspection requirements and different testing requirements. And those are kind of the key value proposition to home buyers when you're talking about looking for housing that is built to a better standard, that is built to an environmental standard. The thing to know is that if a builder can show you a certificate that says, yes, this home is ENERGY STAR certified or R2000 certified or LEED for Home certified, you know that came with third-party validation, that somebody came in, someone like me or the people that work with me at Building Energy, came into the house and tested the house, inspected the house, made sure that the specifications for everything were adequate to actually meet the certification and in turn to actually perform the way the house is intended to perform, to use less energy, to be more airtight, to be more comfortable. And at the end of the day, on paper, it's the energy reduction that we talk about the most, but in practice, what matters to people when you're living in the home is it comfortable? Is it quiet? Is it healthy? And all of these standards, by their very nature, promote better comfort, better health, better quiet in houses. So it's a really good fit.